Hey, I'm Adam. I'm a senior data engineer at Amazon. I was working for Amazon back in Seattle, moved to Canada, then moved down here and started working remotely for a few months until I realized, well, all my team is back in Seattle, but I don't know any data folks here. I wanted to make some connections and learn a little bit about the industry.
So how long have you been in town then?
I've been in Nashville for about 5 months.
Oh wow, okay. So as a transplant from the Northwest, like what do you think about it?
It is so nice to have friendly people. It's little things that make a difference. The way I always explain it, and I hate to speak ill of Seattle, I liked it there, but in Seattle when you were new, people would say, hey, we had a party yesterday, but we didn't invite you because you were new and didn't think you know anybody. And in Nashville, it's, hey, you're new, you don't know anybody, we're having a party tonight, you should come. It's just a small difference, but I really like that.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And you're talking about Amazon folks or just people in general?
Nashville in general. The tech scene in Nashville is actually interesting too because it feels like not quite as picked over, not as well known. There, it's easier to maybe stand out or make an impression around here because we're still not inundated with a bunch of obnoxious tech transplants like myself.
Fair enough, fair enough. But the Middle Tennessee is definitely growing tech expertise with folks like you moving to town. Like we put a lot of time and effort into the youngins and stuff like that. So where do you Actually, let me take a step back. So, what's something that you learned here that you weren't expecting to learn? That's actually a good question.
It was the exposure to new tools like Snowflake. I've been all AWS stack. Exposure to new tools was something that I was not expecting to look at. Also, it's interesting to hear how I've focused on digital. Amazon is a retail company first and foremost, but they've moved into the software AWS space. I've been exclusively in the digital space, so I don't even think about physical goods. But there have been so many folks here who have been from Bridgestone, learning about this Schneider Electric that actually work in the physical world, the Caterpillar as well. So I've learned a little bit about the challenges of managing a business that sells or exists in three-dimensional space. So there's been a ton of that helps me think about that.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of retailers that are putting a lot of time and effort into data and AI and just overall like technology optimization and whatnot. So the last question that I'm going to ask you is like, where do you think, or what are you most excited about over the next year or two with regards to data, AI, like whatever technology just in general?
So the way that I use AI, that personally, it sounds prosaic, but if I have a really, really long tail coding question, I write a lot in Scala, I write a lot in PySpark, and sometimes a lot of the knowledge base will be maybe sort of mid-level, lowest common denominator that's commonly available. I will often ask ChatGPT to help me sort of get 90% of the way there and understand. It makes me a better coder. So that element of being able to sort of scale yourself up that way it's almost like it's a performance enhancer in a sense. That is a personal interest of mine. From a tech standpoint, this is really esoteric, but open table formats are something I'm really excited about exploring.
You have to explain open table formats to me.
Sure. Hoodie and Iceberg. So basically the idea, Delta Lake too, basically the idea of database functionality and transactions on S3 backed storage. So having the idea of like being able to store almost infinite data in the cloud in object storage, but still get the row level updates and deletes and management and security capabilities of a traditional database merging into one. And that's something that I feel like you're kind of seeing in some of the FANG and maybe some of the fast-moving startups, but it hasn't really proliferated yet. People think in terms of like provision database. So that's something that I'm interested in the data world. It's, again, really esoteric, but I'm really excited about it.
Definitely highly technical and whatnot.
Oh, unbelievably technical, yeah.
So any advice for the up and coming? I said I was going to ask you one more question, but here's the actual one more question. Any advice or comments for any of the younger listeners out there that are thinking or they're thinking about getting into a data job or going into a data centric major in school?
Oh yeah. So let me just say this doesn't really lend a ton of credibility around the office, so I kind of keep it under wraps. I have English and French degrees. This is not my field of study. I never expected to be here. If you're in a non-tech background, understand that learning, especially a language background, learning this stuff is just like learning another language. You just learn the keywords. There was a time 15 years ago, someone showed me SQL, and I thought, what genius would ever be able to understand, let alone write this? It was 25 lines of SQL. I still have the code saved. So it's easy to get there. Just focus on, I always say focus on reading. Read as much as possible, read as much code as possible. It's harder to read code than it is to write it. So if you can comprehend what's happening, just expose yourself to it. My first team at Amazon used to laugh because as soon as somebody brought up a SQL problem or a coding problem, I would materialize behind them just to see what they were looking at, because I just wanted to really immerse myself in those details. So just exposure at conferences like this, and then going home and doing learning where you're just reading and just poring it over the details. That's all I could say. And also, again, this is just anybody can do it. Literally anybody can do it. I did not expect to be an English major managing a 300 terabyte data warehouse. But
yeah. Well, that's excellent advice, and thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us today.
Oh, of course, yeah. Really glad you had me on. So thank you.